Don't be an anonymous investor. Join the stock market social media platform public.com. Invest any amount of money and share with friends and new friends. Discover new opportunities such as new companies and potential business partners and useful tools for beginners, and share your experience with friends on public.com. Link in the video description gets you $5 for being a Grid Network viewer. Use the referral code GRIDnet for your free $5 to invest and start investing and networking on public.com.
Happening now on Grid Tonight. Formula One is planning to add more races to the schedule in the future, but why is there a major uproar about it? MotoGP rider Marc Marquez had a massive fall during the Indonesian Grand Prix race weekend, and there are concerns about his health again. What's going on with Marc Marquez, and how is his health affecting his performance on track? Matt White's also here with your weekly Grid History Update. The results are in. South Australia's Labour Party won their state election, but what does it mean for the potential return of the crown jewel, Adelaide 500? Hello to all our viewers watching here in the United States and around the world. Welcome to Grid Tonight, your weekly motorsports news program. I'm Toby Lambeth from the Podium, and with me as always, Adam Lemerise. Also wanted to give a special shout out to all of our Patreon supporters, Colin, Mark, and Duchel. A big thank you for everything you've done for us investing in Grid Network, and link to our Patreon in the video description below. And reminder to all our viewers, please be sure to comment in the chat room below, ask questions, and engage in the discussion. And let's kick off tonight's show with a story that generated a lot of talk in Formula One. CEO Stefano Domenicali told Martin Brundle from Sky Sports F1 there's potential to add races in Las Vegas and Africa. While there's a lot of support for those particular races to happen in the future, Domenicali also mentioned something that sent people into an uproar on social media. Formula One's current Concord agreement currently allows a maximum of 24 races per season, which runs until the year 2025. Domenicali said, while we have a 23 race calendar this year, there's potential for 24 races soon. Most likely it'll be the race in Las Vegas. We'll talk about that a little later in our program. But as interest in Formula One continues to grow worldwide, he added the possibility of eventually expanding the number of races to as high as 30. Yep, I said it. Can you imagine a world with 30 Formula One races out of the year? So here's my question for you, Adam. Is 30 Formula One Grand Prix races a realistic possibility, and why might that be a major problem for many people inside the Formula One paddock?
30 F1 races a year? I think that's a little too many. I'd want to stick with, I like having 23 races on an F1 calendar. Why would I? And a lot of people may not realize this. Formula One drivers are regular people, just like Kobe, myself, all you viewers that watch Grid Network, and everyone else. People get burnt out. They want to have time with their families. They want to get a chance to have a normal life. In NASCAR this year, Eric Almirola is retiring, so he can spend a lot more time with his family. Now, to me, an F1 calendar should include at least having races in the Middle East, including the ones that already have contracts. Go to places F1 fans love. Australia always has been popular. Japan at the Suzuka circuit. The Chinese Grand Prix in Shanghai. You have the United States Grand Prix, the Canadian Grand Prix at Circuit Gilles Villeneuve, the Mexican Grand Prix at Autodrome Hermos Rodriguez. Of course, you can't forget the British Grand Prix at Silverstone. And fans probably miss having the German Grand Prix on the schedule. It normally takes place at the historic Hockenheim Ring. I think 23 races, I like having 23 races on the schedule, but 30 F1 races, I think that's just a little too much. And I think a lot of fans would probably agree with me.
Yeah, I think a lot of fans would definitely agree with everything you said, Adam. But I have a feeling there's also a section of fans out there who would strongly disagree. I know we've seen fans in the past talk about NASCAR races in general, say they want to see NASCAR race every weekend out of the year, which is never going to happen. And Domenicali talking about as high as 30 Formula One races. I'm not sure if he was actually being 100% realistic right there, because 30 Formula One races seems really unrealistic in my opinion, because of all the logistics that have to go into place, and going from country to country, from continent to continent, all over the world. It's just a huge ask to ask all the people in this industry been on the road 30 weeks out of the year. It would be an insane amount of travel, and like you were saying, I'm talking about all the burnout that would become a major issue, and I think we would start to see a brain drain in Formula One, where people are going to be moving on to other series. They're going to go to the European Le Mans series. They're going to go to the World Endurance Championship. They're going to come to IndyCar. Maybe and see some of them come and work in, well, maybe not NASCAR, because that schedule's pretty long as well. So I think IndyCar, World Endurance Championship, GT World Challenge Series, all the series with a much shorter schedule. I think we start seeing a brain drain happen in Formula One. Right now, they have a lot of really talented people all across the board. But I have a feeling if we were to go up to 30 races per year, which would be an insane number, and I don't think it will ever go that high, because I feel like people in the paddock will boycott that, because you'd be on the road all the time. And you mentioned, Adam, they have families, and people actually have interests outside of racing. I know if it was me, I would not want to be on the road 30 weeks out of the year, because some of us want to do things like get married, have kids, all of that. And if you have kids, you're on the road 30 weeks out of the year after year. You're not going to really get to spend much time with your family and all of that. So when you finally decide to leave Formula One, when your son or daughter is a 16-year-old kid, you're going to be sitting at home and be like, so what do you like to do for fun? You're not going to really know them that well, because you're going to be on the road traveling all the time. So I really feel like 30 Formula One races probably not going to happen. And you can find a link to this Sky Sports F1 article in the video description below if you want to read it for yourself. And now going back to Las Vegas, Adam Stern from Sports Business Journal reports Formula One is expected to host a night Formula One race in Las Vegas in November 2023. Seeing how NASCAR Championship for weekend and the season ending in November, there are a few concerns that the Formula One race in Sin City might potentially conflict with the NASCAR Cup Series season finale. However, there are hopes that Formula One will happen after the NASCAR season concludes later in November. How messy would the situation be if Formula One hosts this highly anticipated street race in Las Vegas on the same weekend NASCAR crowns its champion in nearby Phoenix, Arizona?
It'd be messy. It'd be messy a lot. For you viewers out there, what would you rather go see? An F1 street race around Las Vegas, or NASCAR Championship 4? And our colleague Ben Schneider says 23 is already too many. 30 would be absolute insanity. Yes, Ben, I completely agree with you. And we have another comment from Folsey Bear 15 says, I don't know about unrealistic, but I think it'd be too much if they went to 30. I would love a South African Grand Prix at Kyalami again. I agree with you. And he also agrees with Ben, honestly, on the amount. Yes, I'd like to see Kyalami have the South African Grand Prix again. I think sometimes it actually started the F1 season back in the day. It'd be really messy to have an F1 night race in Las Vegas the same weekend as an NASCAR Cup Championship weekend in Phoenix. And F1 needs to realize Las Vegas has a NFL team, the Las Vegas Raiders, who play at Allegiant Stadium. Would you want to have an F1 night race the same time as the Las Vegas Raiders are playing? You could have some Raider fans that are also F1 fans, and they would have to make a decision where they want to go. Hopefully, now for me, I think F1 should hold the night race in Vegas after the NASCAR Cup Championship weekend. Why? Well, you'd still be on the West Coast. You could go from Phoenix to Las Vegas easily. It's not, you could fly there easily. And plus, maybe you get some NASCAR Cup drivers there to watch, to see F1 in person instead of having, but to me, I think it'd be a very messy situation. And if I had to choose between going to NASCAR Cup Championship weekend in Phoenix or go to see F1 in Vegas, I'd go to F1 in Vegas. Why? Simple. The glitz, the glamour, the casinos, the strip. You have sports betting. You have gambling. And plus, you may not get a chance to see an F1 race ever again. So hopefully F1 makes the right call and has this race the weekend after the NASCAR Cup Championship weekend in Las Vegas and not on the same weekend. Hopefully it'll happen.
You bring up a lot of excellent points, Adam. Man, while you were talking, I did a quick Google search to see the driving distance from Las Vegas to Phoenix, and it's a 5 hour and 8 minute drive. So good luck for anybody who wanted to try to do both events. If it turns out that the Las Vegas Grand Prix is going to be the same weekend as a NASCAR Cup Series Championship race in Phoenix, but TV wise, I think that will work out pretty well because if NBC is going to give NASCAR, the same time slot they have, a 3:30 start time, and then the TV window is going to close at 7, and then you're going to have the Formula One race start right after 8 p.m. on a Sunday night. You'll be able to catch both races on your TV. But like you were saying, Adam, all those fans are going to have a really tough decision to make because you decide you want to go see the NASCAR Championship 4 race, or do you want to go see the race in Las Vegas? And I really think that it would be best for both worlds if Formula One decides to have this on a different weekend from the NASCAR Cup Series Championship. So if fans want to attend both and they can afford it, they should be able to go to both. They shouldn't have to decide between that. And I have a feeling that the Las Vegas Grand Prix is certainly going to draw a lot more people than the NASCAR Cup Series season finale. And that's nothing against NASCAR. You said it, Adam, by all the glitz and glamour, Las Vegas, the strip, all of the things that you can do and see in Sin City, and plus a street race in Las Vegas. We don't know how long that would last into the future, so it would be kind of like a once in a lifetime opportunity, and you don't want to decide to go somewhere else where NASCAR Cup Series Championship 4 race. You can pretty much see that every single year, and you'll have more opportunities to go to that, but you may not have future opportunities to go to a Formula One race on the streets of Las Vegas. So I think a lot of people would really opt for a once in a lifetime opportunity because you don't want to have any regrets looking back on it when the Las Vegas Grand Prix is no longer around, assuming that race is going to happen. And we have some more comments in the chat room from our colleague Ben Snyder from Grid Live Encore. Ben says the only ones who want 30 Formula One race are the ones who simply sit on their couch and watch them. Those that work in the sport know is beyond unrealistic. Totally agree with you, Ben. A lot of I feel like in a way some people are very selfish when they say stuff like that. How they want racing every single weekend because they don't know what goes on inside the sport. They don't know the stress and the toll it takes on people who are traveling every single week going to these races, and it really takes a lot out of them. And I think everyone should take a step back and understand that and try to put themselves in those people's shoes who are working in the industry, working inside of the sport. And and Ben responding to David, you said honestly, you think that 20 to 21 Formula One race is already pushing, and he feels that 17 and 19 races is a sweet spot in your opinion, but he's not sure if they'll ever go that low again. Yeah, Ben, I don't really see Formula One going that low again. I see them trying to add more races and go to different places all over the world, but I don't. I'm pretty sure it's not going to get up to 30 total Formula One races, as we've been saying. The word unrealistic, most likely. And moving on, we know Andretti Global wants to start up a Formula One team in 2024, but the recent words from Domenicali are kind of worrisome. In the piece from Sky Sports that, as I mentioned, you can find in the video description below, he said there are about 4 or 5 other requests besides the application from Michael Andretti who want to bring a Formula One team to the grid. Domenicali thinks there's good competition on track right now with the 10 teams and 20 cars we currently have, so he doesn't consider adding more teams as the most important way to grow Formula One. And Adam, this is a simple question. Would it be a huge mistake if Formula One denies Andretti Global?
Yes. You need, think about the name, Andretti. Think about what Mario Andretti has accomplished. He's won F1 races, F1 world titles. He's won the Daytona 500. He's competed in IndyCar. He's won IndyCar races, IndyCar championships. And Michael Andretti, he competed in Formula One with McLaren in 1993. His highest finish was third in the Italian Grand Prix in Monza before McLaren let Andretti go due to the lack of success. And we've mentioned it here on Grid Tonight. Colton Herta. I think he's a McLaren test driver, and he has the opportunity to test the McLaren car from last year. And Colton Herta, I mean, if Andretti Global doesn't compete in F1, Colton Herta probably he could may not get a chance to compete in F1. Don't forget about Pato O'Ward. Last year, he won the IndyCar World Championship, and Zach Brown promised him that if he did, he would test drive a McLaren F1 car. Well, it did happen. So, if Andretti Global isn't on the F1 grid, I think, thank you, Kobe. He won a race, not championship. Thank you for correcting me. I appreciate that. I think, Andretti Global, it'd be another American F1 team. We saw how good Haas did last weekend in Bahrain. Kevin Magnussen finished 5th, and there's a lot of American F1 fans now. The ratings last weekend were some of the best we've seen in a long, long time. And the Drive to Survive series on Netflix, has proven that a lot of Americans are starting to watch F1. So if Andretti Global is denied, I think a lot of fans would be really, really sad and probably pretty mad.
Adam, in any type of way, I don't see how Formula One can justify not bringing Andretti Global F1 to the grid in 2024. As we've been a massive name in the motorsports world. all across the globe. So and everything with Michael Andretti's trying to do, the sponsors. Michael Andretti's been working very hard to get into Formula One. We remember he tried to get the Alfa Romeo Formula One team try to buy a stake into that, but unfortunately they weren't able to do anything with that. And then trying to ask Gene Haas what they're going to do about Haas F1, but Gene Haas has said time and time again Haas F1 is not for sale. And then working with his sponsors, putting all the pieces together, they're trying to sell themselves to Formula One, that we can add value to your grid, that we're serious and we're here to stay in Formula One long term. And I'm not too overly concerned about Domenicali's comment. I'm just a little bit concerned because I don't see how, as I've been saying, I don't really understand how you can justify not adding Andretti. And if it turns out that Andretti does end up getting denied by Formula One, I'd want Stefano Domenicali and everyone at Formula One to put out a statement and explain why this decision was made, so we'll all have a better understanding why you would deny a global powerhouse like Andretti from being on the Formula One grid. And that final decision has not been made yet. But when we find out the fate of Andretti Global F1, we'll be sure to report it first here on Grid Network. And before we move on to the next topic, have a comment from David. Said it would be a major mistake. Andretti is a world-renowned name, and investors would love to have another world-renowned name in Formula One. Totally agree with you, David. And that right there alone is a good reason why Andretti Global F1 should be on the grid come 2024. And Adam brought up really good point about Colton Herta. If Andretti Global gets denied, that also means that Colton Herta might be denied an opportunity to race in Formula One. But you also have to remember he signed on to be a McLaren F1 test driver this year, so he's going to get some running in the McLaren Formula One car. So it's not. It might be over for Andretti for now, if that's the case. But it might not be over for Colton Herta because McLaren might decide to just take him on as one of their drivers in the future. Who knows what the future will hold for Andretti Global and Colton Herta?
Yeah, I agree with everything you said, Kobe, and I agree with what David said in the chat. I appreciate that, David, a whole lot. And now switching over to some news from Germany. After Red Bull and AF Corsa fielded an entry last year in the DTM, which is a very popular series in Germany, for drivers Alex Albon and Liam Lawson, they're returning to the GT3 Racing Series this year with a pair of new drivers driving the Ferrari 488 GT3s. In the number 37 Ferrari with AlphaTauri livery will be Formula E driver Nick Cassidy. Cassidy won't be able to attempt all the races due to his commitments in Formula E and in the FIA World Endurance Championship. Driver the number 74 Ferrari with a Red Bull livery, Brazilian driver Felipe Fraga, who has experience in GT3, GTE, and LMP3 machinery. Red Bull AF Corsa drivers last year have moved on. Alex Albon has gone back to Formula One with Williams. Liam Lawson wanted to focus only on F2, saying he wouldn't compete in DTM again after the controversial ending to last year's championship. The contact was made with driver Calvin Van Linde. And the photos you've seen on the screen, courtesy of Red Bull Motorsports. And in other DTM news, driver Nicky Team will be competing in the series as well, driving a Lamborghini. Why is that important? Well, his father has competed in the DTM in the past, but was known as an international touring car series. His father is Kurt Team, who is a former champion and has competed in the series along drivers Hans Stuck, Keke Rosberg, one of the greatest German touring car champions ever who drove a Mercedes, Bernd Schneider. And now here's Kobe with some news from a past MotoGP World Champion.
Thank you, Adam. And Sunday's Indonesian Grand Prix was one rider short as Marc Marquez had a horrific high side in the warm-up session. After losing the rear grip, the bike launched him off and in the air for 15 meters. A hard landing and the bike was destroyed. He was able to walk away but went to a local hospital for further evaluation and was declared unfit to race. Marquez suffered a concussion from the high side, but on Tuesday morning, it was announced that he was diagnosed with diplopia. Diplopia is the medical term for double vision and is likely to be a side effect of a concussion. Diplopia can be mild, where depending on which direction you look, it may be sporadic and not a big deal. However, sometimes it can be constant and prevent tasks such as driving or riding a motorcycle. In the case of Marc Marquez, Marquez said in his post that it was not as bad as last year. In fact, it appears it may not be connected to the concussion sustained and more of a condition of the nerves. Next week, Marquez will be evaluated again and hopes to be cleared to race. For many race fans, it's also a scary reminder about head safety and concussions racers face on the racetrack. One of the more well-known cases is NASCAR legend Dale Earnhardt Jr. and his struggles with vision and balance after suffering so many concussions throughout his NASCAR career. MotoGP, NASCAR, and many other series around the world have improved their concussion protocols after taking such a hit. Last weekend, IndyCar driver Jack Harvey wasn't cleared to race at Texas Motor Speedway after suffering a hard crash in practice the previous day, and he was replaced at the very last moment by Santino Ferrucci, who happened to be in the area. Adam, considering the horrific nature of Marquez's crash and the multiple issues Marquez had last week on multiple All-Star, more people nervous about him pushing it too hard.
Yeah, I mean, for those of you who haven't seen Marc Marquez's high side during warm-ups at the Indonesian Grand Prix, I highly recommend you go check it out. It was a very scary crash. And now you hear Marc Marquez has double vision again. It's not as bad as previous, but hopefully he'll get a chance. If the doctors give him the okay, hopefully they'll clear him to race in the Argentinian Grand Prix, which is in a couple weeks' time. I think he needs to be a bit more careful, because could we see this happen again? Yeah, it could happen. But I think Marc Marquez needs to take it easy. He's had a lot of, it's not the first time we've seen him have double vision. And you mentioned Dale Earnhardt Jr. It's called, I can remember when he had all those accidents and had all those concussions. And I'm thankful NASCAR and MotoGP have made innovations to the safety, So I think Marc Marquez needs to slow down, take it easy, and hopefully he will be recovered enough, to compete in the Argentinian Grand Prix. Probably Marc doesn't like to miss a lot of races, so we'll see what like I said, it could happen again.
Yeah, very well could happen again. And Adam, it's easier said than done to tell a driver or rider to slow down and take it easy because they're racers. They want to go fast, so it's really hard to tell them that they need to slow it down a bit and focus on the big picture and things. And multiple people felt like Marc Marquez rushed to get back after he suffered his injuries in the last couple of years, and a lot of people thought it hurt his ability to race. And similar to how other drivers have had big crashes and don't seem to have 100% winning Formula. A lot of people, you have to use the example of Jimmy Johnson. I'm sure you remember that really big crash he had at Pocono. And then it seems like after that crash at Pocono, that was the end of Jimmy Johnson's domination in NASCAR for the rest of the season. He didn't look like the same Jimmy Johnson for the rest of his NASCAR career. He didn't look like the Jimmy Johnson we all knew for years in the prime of his career. Marc Marquez was only 29 years old still, about to be 30, and he's shown speed in a differently new Honda bike that he's not used to. So Marquez start off this season, he's had to really adjust his riding style in a way he hasn't done before. So and Marc Marquez has had 2 wins last season, and he should be 100% after his double vision is is cured. And many riders were struggling in Indonesia. Marc Marquez was the one that had the most off. And if he races in Argentina, despite missing the race in Indonesia, he should be very competitive. And he's still not out of it for the championship. So still a lot of time for Marc Marquez to make up for the race that he missed. And before I get into this next story, I want to apologize to all our viewers for getting the name of Team Sting Racing incorrect. Yes, everyone makes mistakes, but a journalist should always strive for 100% accuracy, and I failed to do that. When we first reported on this story, I mistakenly called them Team Strange, a rare mistake by me that I want to take total and complete ownership of. I hold myself to a high standard and accountable for all my actions, and this is totally unacceptable. Thank you for your understanding. I'll keep doing my job and work towards being a better motorsports journalist to bring you the news with the most accurate information possible. And a while ago, Team Sting Racing announced they would enter the NASCAR Cup Series later this year in select events with ex-Formula One driver Tarso Marquez. Yesterday, they made another big announcement that Team Sting is planning to have a unique driver development program that focuses on bringing international drivers to the United States to compete in stock car racing. And they're going to start off racing those development drivers in the ARCA Menard series. And the first driver in the International Driver Development Program is going to be ex Formula 3 driver Matteo Nannini, who won a race last year in Hungary and made a few starts in Formula 2 as well with HWA Race Lab and Campos Racing. Nannini will make his ARCA Menard Series debut on July 8th at the Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course. Next, here's Matt White with a grid history update.
Hi everybody, Matt White here. Time for a mega weekend results roundup from the weekend because everything was happening. What a busy weekend it was. We'll start in Bahrain, where of course Charles Leclerc took victory in the opening round of the season for Formula One in that terrific race at Sakhir, and a 1-2 for Ferrari, the first for a very, very long time. They weren't the only action on track though. F2 and F3 also getting their seasons started. In F3, which isn't back in action now until Imola in 5 weeks' time, Isaac Hadjar and Victor Martins getting victories. F2, of course, Richard Verschoor winning the sprint race and Théo Pourchaire coming through to take victory in the feature. Those guys in F2 and F1, of course, back in action this weekend in Jeddah for the second Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. Big weekend at Sebring, of course, with the World Endurance Championship getting underway, with that big story that broke as well with the Hendrick Le Mans deal coming together for next year's Le Mans 24 Hours. Looking forward to seeing how that progresses through this year and into next. In the WEC race, Alpine were the winners. Nico Lapierre, Andre Negrão and Mathieu Vaxivière beating the might of Toyota. One of those cars crashing, of course, with Jose Maria Lopez at the wheel at about the halfway stage. That big accident which caused the red flag. In the 12-hour on Saturday for IMSA, Earl Bamber, Neil Yarni and Alex Lynn getting the victory for Chip Ganassi Racing. Ganassi were defeated at Texas by Penske. Joseph Newgarden with that last corner pass on Scott McLaughlin. So 2 Penske wins from 2 races in IndyCar this season. NASCAR were at Atlanta, the new look at Atlanta, with William Byron winning in the Cup race on Sunday. Ty Gibbs getting an overtime win in Xfinity, and first-time winner Corey Heim in the Truck Series on Saturday. I like the way NASCAR does that Saturday doubleheader. They should do it more often at other tracks around the country. Motorbikes, MotoGP in action in a very wet race in Indonesia for the first Indonesian Grand Prix for almost 30 years. Miguel Oliveira getting the victory for KTM, his 4th Grand Prix win. There was a second debut win on the spin in Moto2. Celestino Vietti got one in Qatar. It was Somkhiat Chantra's turn to get his first MotoGP or the Grand Prix victory, coming in the Moto 2 class this week. And Dennis Foggia won at a canter in Moto 3. And down in Australia, there was a big weekend of action at Phillip Island with many series in action. S5000, the headliner really, James Golding, Tim Macro and Joey Mawson sharing victories. In TCR, Jay Hansen won on Saturday, and then Supercars refugee Fabian Coulthard getting 2 victories in the TCR races on Sunday. Great action again in Trans Am, which seems to be one of the best series on that Speed Series package. Owen Kelly, some people may remember him from his NASCAR exploits. He won 2 of the Trans Am races at the Island. Nathan Hearn getting victory in the final race of the weekend. And the GT World Challenge Series as a whole kicked off with its Australian opening round. Audi with both wins over the weekend. Chaz Mostert and Liam Talbot, the winners on Saturday. And then Chris Meese and Yasha Shahin winning on Sunday. So a clean sweep for the Audi R8. It's another busy weekend coming. Of course, we've got NASCAR at COTA, all 3 series in action again this weekend. Formula 1 and Jeddah, as I mentioned, with F2. And more Australian action. It's Supercars back for round 2 this weekend. They've gone to Tasmania for the Tasmanian Super Sprint at Simmons Plains. So 3 races for Supercars. So NASCAR, F1 and Supercars pick a winner selections coming your way on the Grid Network over the next couple of days. And don't forget to check out Grid_History, where every day we post a memory from motorsport history with, hopefully, if we've got one, from the Grid Video Vault, a link to the race of our choice for that day. And thanks to Derek Daly for our retweet on his win at Sebring, which we posted at the beginning of the week. Every day there's a tweet from Grid History. You'll see it on the Grid_History account and on the Grid account. And I'll be back to bring you this weekend's result roundup on next week's show.
Thank you, Matt. And last month on Grid Tonight, we brought you a story about the potential return of the Adelaide 500 to the Repco Supercars Championship. However, this possibility would only become a realistic scenario if the Labour Party in South Australia won their state election. Since then, the Labour Party did win their election, and Supercars released a statement congratulating South Australia Labour Party leader Peter Malinowskis for winning the election. Right now, the plan is to have the event December 1st through 4th as the 2022 Supercars season finale. In the photo you see right here on the screen, courtesy of Supercars. Adam, what can you share with our viewers about the Adelaide 500's history?
Kobe, there's a lot of history to this iconic race. To let our viewers know, it used to be home to the Formula 1 Australian Grand Prix. The old American Le Mans series has competed there. And to give our viewers some Supercars history, the first race took place in 1997. The winner was Craig Lowndes, driving for the Holden Racing Team, and driving the Holden Commodore. In the past, we've seen 2 races per weekend. One 250-kilometer race on Saturday, one 250-kilometer race on Sunday. I'll let you guys know some facts about the track. It's a 3.22 kilometer track. The direction is clockwise. The average speed is 146 kilometers an hour. Top speed is 251 kilometers per hour. The qualifying lap record was set by Shane Van Gisbergen for driving for Triple Eight Race Engineering in a Holden Commodore VF 1 minute 19.2951 seconds in 2017 with the Dunlop soft tire. The race lap record, Chaz Mostert for Dickford Racing, driving a Ford Mustang GT 1 minute 20.3792 seconds in 2019 on Dunlop soft tires. And actually, the last time Supercars raced in Adelaide was 2020. Who were the winners? Jamie Whincup and Scott McLaughlin, driving for DJR Team Penske. In fact, there have been 8 times that the winner of the Adelaide 500 has gone on to win the Supercars Championship. Most recently, Scott McLaughlin did it in 2019 and 2020. So to have this event back on the Supercars calendar, it was a win-win, not only for drivers that have missed competing on the streets of Adelaide, but also Supercars fans that have wanted this race for a long, long time. And now they got their reward, and the race is coming back. And fans are hyped down under in Australia.
Yeah, there's a lot of hype about the Adelaide 500 coming back at the end of the year to be the season finale for the 2022 Repco Supercars Championship season. And Supercars CEO Shane Howard said he's looking forward to working with the incoming premier Peter Malinowskis to bring back the Adelaide 500 at the end. Malinowskis previously said the Adelaide 500 coming back would be a much needed boost to hotels, cafes, restaurants, bars, and the city's economy in general. With all these businesses suffering from the COVID related lockdowns, this event returning is huge for the whole community. When Malinowski has held an event prior to the election promising to bring back the Adelaide 500, Supercars drivers Nick Percat, Todd Hazelwood, and Scott Pye were in attendance to support the initiative. And usually in motorsports, we don't see drivers, teams, or even the series itself getting directly involved in politics for obvious reasons. Why was it so important for Supercars to put themselves in the middle of a political battle to help the Labour Party win?
Well, Kobe, like I mentioned, a lot of fans have wanted to see the Adelaide 500, and now they get their wish. You know, it, Scott Pye, Todd Hazelwood, and Nick Percat all come from South Australia. So it's called, they wanted to see the event to return to the calendar, and they got their wish. They'll be able to compete in front of their home state fans at the end of the season, and it's going to be really cool to see. Could this weekend, at the end of the year, decide the Repco Supercars Championship? It could well happen. Right now, Chaz Monster leads the Supercars Championship standings, but this weekend, Supercars, like Matt was saying, goes to Tasmania for 3 races. So it's a win-win situation, not only for fans, that wanted the Adelaide 500, they got their wish, and drivers, now Scott Pye, Todd Hazelwood, and Nick Percat get a chance to compete in front of their home state fans of South Australia.
Well, Adam, to me, it was kind of strange seeing Supercars itself getting involved in the political conversation here because it usually seems that when motorsports and politics mix, it usually doesn't go well at all. But the return of the Adelaide 500 seems like an issue that, isn't controversial like a lot of issues we see in politics. I'm not sure if South Australian politics is as polarizing as politics are here in the United States, but the return of the Adelaide 500, it seems like it was something that meant a lot to many people in that community, something that they really wanted to see come back. So I don't really see why that was controversial at all. I know in NASCAR we've seen drivers, and especially towards the end of the Brian France era, we saw the NASCAR itself, endorse a political candidate, and you also had Chase Elliott present as well during that, and and just I've been talking about how polarizing American politics are. It really upset a lot of people, and when you're looking at political sponsorships as well, NASCAR did going into this season 2022, they decided to ban political sponsorships altogether, and that's why the story we covered a while ago before the start of the racing season, Let's Go Brandon Coin with Brandon Brown, that was dropped because NASCAR deemed it as political sponsorship, and that's not okay because they want to foster quite a welcoming environment. And we also have one comment from David saying, you think Adelaide will be a good addition to Supercars? It's a place that to you just makes the racing good from Formula One early on, and then onto Supercars, a place that really enjoys racing. So you said it right there, David. Return on Adelaide 500 is not controversial at all. So I'm pretty sure all of the Australian fans are going to be really excited to see that event come back. And I'm sure when the tickets go on sale for that race, they're going to sell like hotcakes.
Oh yeah, Kobe. It's a race that fans have called used to kick off the Repco Supercars Championship, and now it comes back as season finale. Uh, it's going to be what a way to end around the iconic streets of Adelaide, Australia. Pretty cool. And now switching over to some other motorsports news. For the SRX race at the National Fairgrounds Speedway this year, that's right, the fans, will get a chance to decide the local track star who will compete in the race. And looking at the drivers here on the ballot, Brittany Zamora, the first female to win a feature at that track. Bubba Pollard, a driver who don't need an introduction, winner of the All-American 400 here at the National Fairgrounds Speedway, and one of the biggest short track racers in the country. Cole Williams, a two-time Pro Late Model Series champion. Michael House, a local driver from the volunteer state of Tennessee, also a two-time Pro Late Model Series champion, and he's the defending champion. Stephen Nasse, another driver who doesn't need an introduction. You'll either get Classy Nasse or Nasty Nasse. He's a two-time Southern Super Late Model champion and winner of the iconic Winchester 400 at the iconic short track in the Hoosier state of Indiana. And Dylan Fetchko, last but not least, another local driver from Tennessee. He's the 2020 Pro Late Model Series champion. Voting starts on April 3rd and ends on May 6th. And the winner will be announced during the Arca Menards East race at the track on May 7th. And now switching over to some news from, again, in Australia. The Dunlop Super 3 Series will be allowed to compete during the iconic 12 Hours of Bathurst in the month of May, bringing those drivers more seat time and more TV time. They'll be competing in an invitational class. So check your local listing to see when it'll air here in the United States and across the world. Those Super 3 drivers are very competitive, and eventually they could move up to the Dunlop Super 2 Series, and eventually they could land a spot in the Repco Supercars Championship. And the action takes place at the 12 Hours of Bathurst from May 13th to the 15th. And now it's time for everybody's favorite game here at GRIDnet Network, Pick a Winner. And even though it doesn't show it on the leaderboard, Kobe has 5 wins after his win with Charles Leclerc in the F1 opener. And I have 4 wins. So now it's time we stay down under, as the Repco Supercar Championship has 3 races at the Tasmanian Super Spread at Symmons Plains Raceway. Last time Supercars raced here, the winners were Shane Van Gisbergen in race 1, Jamie Whincup race 2, and Chas Mostert race 3. So it's always incredible action at Simmons Plains Raceway. With that being said, Kobe, who wins race 1 at the Tasmania Super Sprint at Simmons Plains Raceway this weekend?
I know you're going to be really shocked to hear this, Adam, but I am not going to go with Shane Van Gisbergen for once. I'm feeling very adventurous tonight, so I'm going to go out on a limb and say that I'm going to go with a driver who's either hot water or cold water, but I think in race 1 he's going to be hot water, so I'm going to go with the driver to number 6 Monster Energy Ford Mustang. I'm going to go with Cam Waters to win race 1 at Simmons Plains in Tasmania.
Kobe, that's a very solid pick. And I'm not picking Shane Van Gisbergen either. Surprised? I'm going with the driver who currently leads the Supercars points, and he won race 3 last time the Supercars were at Simmons Plains Raceway. I'm going with Chas Mostert, driver for Walkinshaw and Greta United. And there'll be 2 other Supercars races this weekend at Tasmania, so be sure to stay tuned for the pre-race show and post-race show as we discuss all the action from the Repco Supercars Championship in Tasmania. Another edition of GRIDnet in the books, and I'll send it over to my colleague, Kobe Lambeth, with the wrap-up.
Yep, that's it for another edition of Grid Tonight. Please like and subscribe to Grid Network here on YouTube. You can follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. We encourage you to take 5 minutes after our show and consider joining our Patreon Investing Grid Network to keep us on the air well into the future. Do you want to buy me a coffee? Click the link in the video description below, and you can buy a drink for your favorite on-air talent here at Grid Network. And a big thank you to Edward Hunter, formerly Zone, Amber, Zachary, for buying us a coffee. We greatly appreciate it, and any amount you give will greatly help the Grid Network move forward. And be sure to visit public.com, also known as the stock market social media home. The link and referral code below gives you $5 to invest immediately. Public.com allows you to connect with your friends. You can make new friends and use tools to learn how to properly invest in the stock market. And looking ahead to our schedule for the week, Thursday morning, you can find a brand new episode of Women in Motorsports with Joe Samniego and Daniel Zeri from Racers, the girls behind the helmet. And then on Saturday, Grit Live pre-race, but it's going to be a little bit later in the day after Formula One qualifying for the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix, which gets underway at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. And then Sunday, we return for Grit Live wrap-up 90 minutes after the NASCAR Cup Series race at Circuit of the Americas. Should be an interesting show, especially the last year's race, we saw NASCAR Cup Series cars race in the rain and in a new next-gen car. It's really designed to race on road courses, and the old car they were using not designed on road courses. So it'll be really interesting to see how the next-gen car is going to race at a road course for the very first time. And for Adam Lemerise, I'm Kobe Lambert from the Podium Finish. Thank you all for watching tonight, and we'll see you next time.
Don't be an anonymous investor. Join the stock market social media platform public.com. Invest any amount of money and share with friends and new friends. Discover new opportunities such as new companies and potential business partners, and useful tools for beginners, and share your experience with friends on public.com. Link in the video description gets you $5 for being a Grid Network viewer. Use the referral code GRIDnet for your free $5 to invest. Start investing and networking on public.com.